or show me this, or do that. So this states over here, another simple understanding, it just some names that's happening. First, this is happening, this is the name, and then this is happening, and here is the name. Okay, so if this is happening, show me this, show me that. So we do conditional check. That's what we said earlier. Using block builder, we check on the states. As we do it, we emit the states. Okay, let's go ahead and check it. Now we might have an error. Let's see what's happening. Okay, and it says that main dart. So let's go ahead and find our main dart, which is this one. Sorry. So I guess we are missing some. Oh, sorry. So we are missing something here. So as I said, that block provider, so it should create our qubits and hold the qubits. So here, this one, actually you see here we have qubits and states. So that's what I meant by holding qubits. Okay, so we need to call this class over here. So here we'll call app qubit logics. Okay, this is the child. So create the qubit and show the logic using within this. Okay, and based on that, do conditional check. So let's go ahead and run it. And looks like we have another issue. Anyway, so I restarted my app and it worked. Okay, that's all. Because there's a change of the state, so sometimes you need to restart your app, and then it worked, so there were no problems. So yeah, that's it. So here we're able to trigger a new page, okay, using this qubit. And isn't it excellent? So this is the first thing we have done. So we created over here several states, and after that, within qubit, we initialized the first state, and after that we triggered another emit, which means another state. Okay, and then over here using block builder, we have found that state, and based on that state we are redirecting. So right now here my understanding is it also works more like routes. It tells you either go here or go there, conditional check. Okay, hopefully you understood, and this is the most basic idea about qubits. So our app is working right now. We have loaded this page using qubit state management and logic. Okay, next what we want to do, we want to load this data from the server, load them and some other information, and show it on the screen. Okay, all right, to do that, first we need to go ahead and install one package. So if you come over here to this file, go ahead and install this HTTP package. It would be responsible for loading the resources from the network. Well, first we'll create a new directory and we'll call it services. Now here we'll create a new file. We'll call it data services.dart. Okay, now over here first we'll go ahead and import our HTTP package. So let's see this one, and we'll do as HTTP. Okay, now here we'll create a class and we'll call it data services. Now within this class, first we'll have a string for our base URL. So base URL, and here we'll write my base URL, http mark.bslmail.com, and there is an endpoint for API, so that's API. I'm using Laravel, so it depends on what kind of backend you use. Anyway, so now here I'll also create a new method. We'll call it getInfo, and within info, first I'll declare a variable or string for my API URL, and here the endpoint is get places. So this is my actual API, get places. Now here, based on this, I'll combine these two together, this one and this one, and I'll create a HTTP GET request. So that's what I want to do. So I would do http.get. Okay, now it takes URI. Well, now that is our total URI, but we can pass it within a helper function. It does some decoding for you, parsing. So this one, we can do base URL plus API URL. So based on this together, it creates a request to the server, and then it returns something. So the return type is http.response. Okay, so we get a response back from server, and we can call it res to hold it within a variable. Okay, now let's see. And we might need to use, because here it says that it returns the future. So what you need to do, you need to do await here. And if you do await, you need to do async modifier. Okay, perfect. So with this, we get the data from the server. Okay, we get actually object here, JSON object within it. Now here, we need to decode it. Well, before we decode it, actually, we need to make sure that we are getting really response back from the data from the server. So we would use try catch clause. Okay, now within it, we'll do a check if res equal status code equal 200. Now HTTP package, if you get data from server, it returns the code 200, and the code name is like variable name is status type or status code actually. So if status code equal 200, that means data is correct and response is correct. Okay, so if the response is correct, we take it. Okay, otherwise we print error to the console. Okay, that's what we do. So once you get the data, you need to decode it. Okay, all right. So now here you want to put the decoded data in a list which will have a dynamic type, dynamic, and we'll call it list. Now within it, here we need to decode the data. The data is within this, right? Well, now it does response a lot of things, so we just want the body of this data. So we do json.decode. Of course, we need to import a file for this library, convert library. So here we would do res.body. Okay. Now, actually, what is the body? Let me show you over here. So I have this postman, and this is my total URI, as you can see from here. Okay. So this is postman and URI, exactly same as this one we have. So this is the combined URI. Okay. Now this returns, I can test my API that it's working correctly because it's sending back me data or response. Okay. Now if you see over here, so this is what I get as body over here, as you can see. So body is a list of objects, JSON objects. Okay, so it returns JSON objects. So within body is within this this braces over here and this one, as you can see. So it returns ID, name, description, and other lot of things. Okay, so this is what we get. Now we need to decode it. Why? Because Flutter doesn't understand JSON; it understands map. Okay. Anyway, first, whatever we get, we need to decode it. So that's why we did decode, and we are decoding the body. Okay, once again, so this is the whole body. We are decoding it. Okay, and we are putting it in a list first. Okay, all right. Now we'll convert it to map, then it will convert it to list. Okay, because if we convert it to map, then we will have easier access to the properties, underlying properties to this one. And we are doing all of this because Flutter doesn't understand JSON. Okay, now after decoding it, we are going to put it over here. Okay, and then we'll convert it to map so that our app can use it. Well, to do that, first we need to go ahead and create a model. So over here within it, I'll create a directory and I'll call it model. And now here within it, I'll create a new file. I'll call it data model.dart. Okay. Now, if you saw it now, here we have this properties, ID, name, description, prices, people, star. Of course, we don't need all of them. We need name, description, price, stars, people, and IMG for now. In future, we might use, we also need location and selected people. Well, So let's go ahead and declare them very quickly. So here I'll create a class, and class name is data model. Okay, so we'll have string, that's name, and we'll have string for our img for image, and we'll have int for price, int for people, int for stars, and string for description, and string for location. Okay, now we'll quickly create the constructor for this data model. Okay, now over here, so let's see if we can do it automatically. It looks like we can't. So what we'll do here, we do required this dot name, all right, so we have built the constructor. Okay, all right, now as I said earlier, from the server we get JSON. So from JSON, after decoding it, we want to convert it to map object. Okay, because Flutter understands map. Well, to do that, we need to declare a new method. It's called and the method type is factory, and here we do data model, and here we'll create a method called from JSON, and whatever it gets data from this call over here. Okay, yeah, so the data is more like map format. Okay, so if you don't know what is map format, check out my other tutorial. So here we'll have string and dynamic. Okay, so here we mean that so this is so our key is the string, and this value is dynamic because there could be any kind of value, integer, string, or whatever, but the keys are always string. Okay, so that's why we write here string and dynamic. Hopefully it makes sense. All right, now here we'll return our data model. Okay, well, as you can see, it's already laid out for you, so it would be now once we get the response from the server, we'll get these things, we'll get them as a key. Okay, so you want to grab them and give it to Flutter. That's what we'll do now. Okay, so here we'll have a variable and we'll call it JSON. Okay, so we'll send information to this variable, and this variable should hold this information here, this keys here. Okay, now we'll be able to access them. So here we'll write JSON Okay, well, with this we are done with our data model. So all we need to do, we need to grab the object and put it in JSON, this variable. Actually, you can call it anything, it's just the convention, and we'll assign one-on-one to these variables over here, and then we'll be able to access them, these variables. Okay, perfect. Okay, now we want to come to our this file over here, data services, and within it, so now everything is in the list. So from the list we want to convert them to the map. Now we'll return a list. Okay, so we'll do return list, but now before we return, first we'll convert it to map. Why? Let me tell you. So after this list should have information like this. Okay, piece by piece, like so. This would be the first piece, and then second piece, like this, piece by piece. Okay, so now each E would point to this certain paste or I mean certain data like to this information. Another E or the next E should have information or point to this one. Okay, so you'll be able to access block by block. Okay, now as we access them, we would convert them to map. So we could call data model like the first one. Now we can simply pass the E. Okay, and after that we'll convert it to list. Okay, over here. So with this, actually we're pretty much done with loading the data from the server. Well, after this we'll be able to load the data, but I think we also need to change the return type because we don't have any return type over here, but we are returning data over here, right? So we'd return future, and here list, and here the type is data model. Okay, because this is data model type. And now I think we should also have one return statement here. Okay, return data model, and but of course it should be a list type data model and empty. If we have error, we're returning empty. Let's see over here. Okay, now over here we also need another one. If it's not true, or if it can't load data successfully, then we'll return this one. Now the error is gone. Okay, well, with this the data loading would be successful. But now we need to come back to our app cubic. We need to create two more states. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just simply go ahead and copy them and paste it there. So first one we'll call as loading state, and the second one is loaded state. So this state would be triggered when you are trying to load the data. So we'll have circular indicator, and this state would be triggered once we have the data has been loaded successfully. Okay, so that's why we need them both. Well, now we need to find a way to call them. Okay, so where they're happening. To do that, first we'll go ahead to our qubit over here, and over here we'll create a new method. That method type is void, and we'd say get data, just like that. Okay, yeah. And now here we'd also one more time do try and clause catch, try catch clause, sorry. All right, now here we'll call this one from somewhere. Okay, so once we call this one first we want to load or trigger this state, which is loading state. Okay, so here we would do loading state, we would do emit loading state. Okay, and so at that time it would be loading. Okay, well, as it's loading, what we could do, we could come to our logical file, which is, let's see, not this one, not this one, this one. Okay, so we also don't need this anymore, this one over here. Okay, so here actually we could do a conditional check once again. So what I'll do, I'll copy paste this one and put it right there. Okay, now here I want to check what kind of state it is. If it's loaded state, okay, if it's a loaded state, then I want to call a function, or I want to draw something different over here. So if it's loaded state, I want to draw a circular indicator. Okay, so here I would do center, okay, child, circular indicator. Okay, circular progress indicator, that's all. So that's what we'll call. So once again, if you come over here, so this would be responsible for loading state. Let's see, it's not loaded, it's loading. Okay, so this would be responsible for loading state, and now this state is in our qubit over here. So we'll call this function. Once we call this function, it will trigger this state, and if it's triggered this state, this file over here, this dot class, would be able to file it because it loops through all the states and find it. Okay, and once it finds it, it would do this one. Okay, Now, of course, we need to find a place to call this function. Where do we call it from? Of course, we can call it from our welcome page over here, as we saw early. So this is our welcome page, and welcome page has a button, this button, right? So we need to find this button. And where is this button? This is the button, okay? All right, now this button, we should wrap it around within a container and as a child, okay? And then we'll give it a width, say width 200. And after that, we'll wrap it around another widget. That widget we'll call gesture detector. Okay, and it takes on-tap event. Okay, and within on-tap event, we'll call that function. The function we just created over here. So over here, this button would get triggered, or would trigger this function. And then this function would trigger this loading state. And once it does, it would be able to find over here and load it successfully, okay? And show this indicator. So here, we'll just go ahead and simply call a block provider of qubit. So we do block provider of here. So we have our app. So our qubit name is this one, app qubits. So we do this one, app qubits. Okay, and within it, we need to pass a context, and then we can access the method which is called get data. Okay, so while if you have any kind of method, you can access them anywhere from your view using block provider. Okay, so as I said earlier, block provider checks the states. Okay, block provider also can call as I said earlier, block provider holds the qubit. So right now this is like a qubit. So the way I understand, each function is also a qubit. Okay, it's holding the qubit and I can access them. So anyway, so one thing you could do, we could go ahead and run it, and it's working. Okay, it's loading. Perfect. So you try it one more time. So this is our initial state, and if you click on this, it's loading. Okay, so that means that, so now we can load our data as it's being loaded, showing within this time we can load our data. Okay, to load, okay, first we'll go ahead and declare data and load the data within this get data. Okay, so here we'll do final data services, and we'll call it data. Simply we'll call it data. But now of course this is a variable and a final variable, so we need to initialize inside this thing. But there is another important thing though that you should know. Well, here, okay, we'll initialize it within it, and we'll call it required this dot say data. Okay, no problem. But now if we come over here, we'll have error here because we need to pass this one over here as well, because you are mentioning, you are saying that over here it should take data, and data type is data services type. Okay, well, after this we need to come over here, and we also need to pass from our qubits. Okay, over here, so we need to pass data services, and now the error should be gone. So what happens here, once we first create this qubit, we are also asking to create a service over here, okay, and an object from this service. Hopefully it makes sense. And after that we would be over here, and then we can load the data and put in this variable. Okay, so I'll put the data in this variable which is called here we need to create a variable first. We'll call it late final places. Okay, all right, so now our places, this variable will hold data from this one. So data.get info. So get info is actually loading the variable and every information from the server, right? And then we put it to this one. Hopefully it makes sense. Now if we are able to load the data and put this one over here, now we can, after that we'll be able to trigger a new state. But do remember, now interesting thing should happen, because it could, you might need to await for the data. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. Then we'll do async over here. So we are waiting for the data. All right, once the data has been loaded, the next line would execute. Okay, otherwise it won't. Okay, so here we would emit a new state. What is the state? We'd emit loaded state. Loaded state, this one. Okay, but now the data has been loaded and we need to pass the data to this one over here. So we'll pass it to it, loaded state. Now we need to come back to our state over here. So this is the loaded state. Now over here, well, we are passing the data, so we need to catch them over here. So you do loaded state within the constructor, because this is a class. So first we'll declare a variable, and the data is coming here as list. So we do data model. Okay, that's all. And the variable name is places. So we'll put it over here, places, this dot places. So we'll grab the data. Okay, so now because we said early, this kind of list is used for trigger auto build of the UI. So we need to put it over here. Now our UI will, our qubit would know, oh, there is new data. So let's go ahead and rebuild the UI if necessary. Okay, so once again, what's happening here? So this function gets called, then I'm showing loading state. So it would be loading over here, and then at the same time it would come over here and try to load information from the server. Once that is loaded, it will trigger this one. As it triggers, we'll also update our state, because we have gotten data. So if you get data, you can update your state. Okay, so as you update the state, you are also emitting it, right? You emitted it over here because you have this emit function. Now, while if you could emit it, here is the interesting thing. You could come over here to your, let's see, this file, which is called this one. Okay, so we know that emitted state we can find over here, right? So we'll just simply copy paste it over here. Okay, now here we might check for a new state. So the new state is loaded state. Okay, now while if the state has been loaded, so which means we are over here. Okay, so we can ask for a new page. What is the page, or where is the page we want to go? We want to go to the page which is called home page. So this is the page we want to go. Okay, all right, so what we'll do, we'll simply come over here and we'll call home page. Okay, now we need to import it. So let's stop the app. Well, we ran the app. Now we have a bit of problem once again. Now it's coming from this welcome page over here. So we have this button. Now responsive button is expanding using flexible, if you remember. Now flexible should be always wrapped around row or column widget. So that's why we are getting this error. So now here we'll wrap it around another widget, and we'll call it here row. And of course we will have to use children because we are a row. So here I'll just put them around this and now the error should be gone. Now let's rerun it one more time. Okay, now the error is gone. Okay, so yes, just now we think we worked on this tab button. Okay, and this tab button would trigger get data, and get data would be coming from over here, our qubits app over here. Okay, so it'll load the information from the server and trigger loaded places. Okay, and then once we click on this button, we can see that we'd be able to load this data, right? And once we load this data, if you come to this qubit app logics, so this loaded state has been triggered, so we can go to our home page. Okay, so that's what we expect. Okay, let's see. Yes, the data loaded and it took us over here. Of course, this data is still not from server, but we can prove that our data has been loaded from the server, and then we come over here. How can we do that? We can go to this data services over here, and I think we can just simply put and print this list. Okay, and we'll see that it's been loaded, and then we direct it to this page. Let's go ahead and check it. Okay, now we click on this and we'll see that it's been loaded. Okay, then we come over here. All right, so that's how it works. So the data loading has been working successfully. So now what do we need to do? We need to come to our home page and find the data and use the loaded data rather than this one. Okay, so all the data has been loaded, and now at the same time, if we see over here, so once this is loaded, the state has been loaded state over here, this has been called. Now here this props has been updated with new values. Okay, so once again, if you see our app qubits, so over here we load them and then we emit the state. Okay, and as we emit the state and we save them in our states over here in this props. So now if we use block builder, we'd be directly able to access this prop. Okay, all right, so now we need to come to our home page over here. Now if you look at it, so the body, so here we have this body contains column, so I'll go ahead and simply cut this one. Now here we'll use block builder, and we already learned that using block builder we can access the states. So here we want to access the state because we want to get the props over here, like this props over here. Anyway, so now it takes two parameters. First one is app qubits. For our case, it's qubits class, and the second one is qubit states. Okay, qubit states. And I guess we need to import them, otherwise we'll have an error. Okay, now over here, okay, we are good. Now it's asking you that you need a builder property which takes function, and first parameter is a context and second one is the state. Now using this state, actually we can access the state of our qubit states. Okay, so that's why we need block builder. Now here we'll return our column, the one I just copied earlier, or I cut. All right, so now there is no error. Well, here is another interesting thing we could do. We can actually wrap this whole thing once again, this one, around if else statement. Just make sure that the state is there. How can we do that? So we can check if state is loaded state, because by this time data should be loaded, all of them. Okay, if state is loaded state, then do something else, do something else. If there is no this state, it means we have the wrong state or something went wrong. So we'll just say show empty container, but of course you can here show much more. It doesn't have to be an empty container. And over here we'll return what we just cut earlier. Okay, well, the other thing is that now because of this state keyword, we can access the props from the qubit states, this class. So here I'll declare a new variable, I'll call it info, and here I would do state.places. As you see, we can access it, and that's all. Okay, now this info contains this list over here, so it returns the list. Now what we could do, we could go ahead and start to change our information. So the first place we want to change is here. So now instead of static 3, we would do info dot length. Okay, all right, that's one. And the other one over here, now instead of having this one, so I want to use network image, not asset image. Okay, because they are coming from network. So we do network image, and it takes the path. Now in my case, all of my photos are saved in http mark.bslmail.com and within uploads folder. Okay, so this is the folder for my images, and so from here I can retrieve the images that is passed down to me through this list, as you can see. So all I need to do right now, add this one. Okay, so what I will do, I'll just go ahead, do plus and info, and here info, let's see, after doing info we can access the index. Okay, index. Now here we could do img. Okay, so for a certain index we get the ing. All right, and it should work. Okay, now whether it's working or not, we can just go ahead and load it and see what happens. Now we loaded our app and this started from the beginning. So by this time we have two state has been emitted. One is initial state, other is welcome state. Now once we click on this, we'll emit a new state, and that would be our loaded state. Okay, let's go ahead and check it. Yes, this data, they're all coming from server. Isn't it amazing? Okay, yeah, so we're already done with our app. I mean, almost done. I wouldn't say already. So yeah, so it's working. It's amazing. I feel good because it's been like almost 4 hours, I would say, guys. So, and thanks for sticking up with me for so long. And of course, in future, we'll also see how to update this information using Qubit. Okay, well, the next thing we want to do, we want to be able to click on this and go to a new page and show this related info for a particular image. Okay, well, to do that, first we need to come to our app Qubit states over here, and over here we'll create a new state. And for this one, we'll first go ahead and copy this one, and instead of loaded state, now we want to go to detail state. Okay, detail state, it means the detail page, because we want to click on certain image and go to a detail page. Okay, so that's why I said it detail state. So I'll change it over here. Now once I call this state, which means when I emit this state, so at that time I'll pass this data model to it. Okay, as a list, I'm going to pass it. Okay, so that's why I have this prop, which is different from this one, because this one includes everything and this one just includes a certain list from our one certain child from the list. Okay, all right, so now the state has been created. Now we'll go ahead to our app Qubits, and for this state we'll create one new emit or emit function. That's what I would understand. Okay, all right, so how to do that? So here I'll call it, say, detail page, like that, and of course it will get information from the caller function, and it will send data model and data. Okay, this would be the type that it would send. Okay, and we need to import it, otherwise we'll get an error. Okay, well, another thing here, we also need to take care of this one. We'll do it later. I missed it last time. Anyway, so now here I'll simply emit a new state. So that state is called detailed state. Okay, the one we just created, detailed state. Okay, and it takes this information, which is called data. So that's what we are passing them, and we are done creating the qubit. And well, we have this error. That's because if you come over here and see, well, it's the list. Okay, but we are just passing one child from the list, so we don't need to create it like list over here. I mean, wrap it around the list, not like this, because we're just passing one of the items. And now if you come over here, I'm sorry, if you come over here to the qubits, the data, this error has been gone. So that's good one. Now our qubit has been created, and our state has been created as well. So now it's time to call it. We can call it from our home page. Now call from where? Definitely we can call it from, I guess, from this container over here, because this container, we want to make it clickable. This container contains our image. So I'll come over here, and what I'll do, I'll go ahead and wrap it around a new widget. And this one is gesture detector. You can also do inkwell, it doesn't really matter. So here, sorry, on tap. Okay, so it takes on tap event, on tap. All right. Okay, and it should be here. Okay, now the error has gone. So over here, what we'll do, we'll once again use block provider to access the qubit. That's what we learned. So you do block provider dot off. You need to use off function, and here it takes the qubit. What is our qubit? That is app qubits, this one. And then it also takes context, the current context, and after that we can access whatever we want to access from our qubit. So from our qubit, we want to access a function that's called detail page, this one. Okay, and we'll pass one of the items from our index or from the list actually. So how to pass it? So do remember we have this info, and using info we can pass a certain index. So that means that for that index we are passing the whole item. Okay, now we are good. So hopefully now if we go ahead and run it, we should be able to move to a new page. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and do it. So we'll run it from the beginning, make sure everything is okay and no error. Now click on here, so the data has been loaded and no error here. Now we want to be able to click on them, so let's go ahead and click. Looks like our click didn't really work. Let's see, I think we're at the wrong place. I'm so sorry. What I'll do, I'll just copy this one, and then I'll do Control Z to come back. Let's see. Okay, so this is not the place. I think it should have been here, over here. Okay, so this one, and within this, so this is the container, this is the place we changed. I'm sorry about that, but now anyway, here we'll do gesture detector once again, and we do gesture detector, and now here I'll just put what I copied. Now I'll run it one more time. So I'll click on this, and now I'll click on this. Okay, yeah, well, it does, it took, well, now what happened here, as you clicked on this, it tried to come here, and what happened, so let's do it step by step. So from this qubit, we are trying to call this function a qubit function. So our qubits are all here. Now it came over here and emitted this state, and at the same time it saved this data information to our states over here. Okay, now we were supposed to see this thing in detail page, but detail page is not there. What happened? That's because in our app qubit logic we are not looking for it and redirecting to a new condition or new page. Okay, so that's why it happened. So we can solve it easily. So we'll just copy any of them. Okay, and here I'll put it. Okay, after copying, now simply I'll just do another test over here. So I'll say if the state is detail state. Okay, do remember, so this state name is detail once you emit from here. So that's the detail state. Anyway, so now you come over here, and then we'll redirect it to a detail page. Okay, so detail page, yes. Okay, now go ahead, run it, and it'll definitely work. Come over here. Okay, everything is fine. And now if you click on this, it should work. So it took you to a new page. Of course, if you click on this, you can't go back. Well, the first thing we'll take care of now is going back. So from detail page, we need to go back to previous page. Well, to do that, first, we have to understand one concept here. Once we click on this, we just want to go back to the previous page. And on the previous page, every data has been loaded. So we don't want to load anything. We just want to go back to the previous page. Now, the state of the previous page is loaded state. Okay. Now, we already have loaded state over here, which is this one. So we need to find a way, once again, emit this state on this button click. Okay, so that's what we need to do. And that's pretty easy. So we could just come over here and write a new function. We can say go home. Okay, and over here we'll emit loaded state. Okay, loaded state. And loaded state takes this list, which is places. That's what we are passing. And once again, this places is coming from here. Okay, so all we need to do now in our qubit from a block provider, we need to call this function. It will return or emit this state. Okay, now once it emits this state, we can find it easily over here because it's already here, home page. Okay, so we don't need to change over here. So for this one, all we need to do and all we did is this one. That's all. So now we need to come to our detail page, and in detail page over here, let's see. One thing we need to do, we need to find this button over here. I think this button is over here. Let's see. Okay, it should be inside this one. Yeah, icon button. As we already see, we have this unpressed event. So over here, let's go ahead and call block provider, because we know using block provider we can access the qubits or qubit functions. Okay, so here we'll call app qubits. Okay, and it takes context, and from that context we can access a method. So in our case, it's called go home. All right, that's all. Okay, so after clicking on this, we want to go back. All right, so let's go ahead and run it, see everything's working fine or not. It loaded. Now I load this one. Now click on this. Yes, it went back. You click on this one, it went back. Okay, perfect. So it means it's already working. Okay, and also, as you see, using this state management system, even though we loaded this data long ago in somewhere else, but we go back and we still see the data, it's still there. Okay, all right, so this is perfect. So far so good. And now once we click on this, we want to change the image. We don't really want to see this static image. So now here we are in this one. So once again, if we want to access everything from this state over here, from here, we need to wrap it around once again using block builder. Okay, so I'll simply, let's see, I'll simply cut this one. Okay, now here I'll do block builder. Okay, and block builder takes two parameters, we know, so we'll just remove this one first, or actually we can do it here. So the first one is app qubits, the second one is qubits state. All right, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Now over here it takes two parameters. The first one is context, the second one is state. Okay, and then we'll return, and after returning we can just say here return scaffold. Okay, the one we copied early. Okay, and the error should be gone. Now because of this one, now we are able to access the state because of this one. Now what state we want to access? We want to access the state that is included in over here. Okay, all right, now let's see. I believe using this you can access actually all the state. So we want to access the certain state, and I mean all the states. I believe this one, and this one, all of them you can access, but in this case we just want to access this one. So how to access that? But the one contains this, that state name is detail state, right? So we need to find detail state over here. So what we could do, we would do detail state and the detail over here, state as detail state. Okay, now this should include our state as well as the information that is encapsulated inside this. Okay, all right. So now it's time to go ahead over here, and first we want to change this one. So instead of this, we'll use network image, and we already know that we don't need this one anymore, so we'll use http mark.bsl.maui.com uploads. Now here, so we'll click here detail dot place dot img. Okay, perfect. Now copy this, sorry, restart it, hot reload. Perfect. Isn't it amazing? Okay, so it's working already. Click on this image, click on this, you'll see this image. So everything is working. All right, now I'll simply copy this one over here because I need to reuse it, and I'll change all the other places where we need to change. Let's see the places where we need to change. Definitely the first place over here, row. So instead of this, we'll just simply pass this one. Okay, all right. And so the amount, instead of this, of course here we don't need this image, here we need name. Now here we need to do a what is it, concatenation, I think they call it, and here we would do place.price, and let's keep finding them. And I think okay, we need to convert it to string so that it works, because it returns int over here. Okay, we're good with that. And over here is the same thing. So here we'll do this one, dot location. We are good. And let's see over here, number of stars. So over here we can simply just do this dot stars. Okay, and total is 5. All right, actually it should be 5. What else over here? Now this doesn't change, description doesn't change, and we also need to change this one over here, the long text. We don't need it anymore, so I'll just go ahead and simply delete this. Now I'll put it this one, and here I'll do description. Okay, now let's go ahead and run it. Yes, amazing, all this information changed quickly, immediately. Okay, all right, so now come over here, click on this. Yes, you see a different kind of information, different stars. You can click on this. All right, this looks like we have a bit of what is it, overflow issue by 11 pixel. Now either this number is too big. Okay, so one way to take care of this problem, either you change them, okay, change the font size, or change this one on the back end. So what I'll do, I'll go ahead and I'll see, let me see, check on others one. Yeah, so the problem is now this name is too long. Okay, so one way to take care of this thing, instead of doing on the back end, yeah, I think I would go over here, and this is my back end. I think this is the place where it's causing problem. So I don't want to reduce the text size. I'll just do here ice filled, and submit it. Now come to our app over here. Let's do a reload, load everything from the scratch. Okay, and now click on this. Oops, I think I did it to the wrong place. Let's click on this Icefield Parkway. Oh, I think let's see, I changed it to the wrong place. So over here, actually I need to change it over here. This is the name. Okay, now it should work. Let's come back to our app over here. And by the way, if you want a tutorial on this back end, just let me know. I'm planning to make one, but it depends on how much you guys want it. So let's load it. So over here, I'll click on this. Now it's perfect. Okay, so everything is working, including this description, as we wanted. All right, so far so good. And if you learned something, please don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button and share this article or this tutorial. Anyway, so in the next part of this tutorial, we'll see how to work on this and send a post request to our server and save the information, and then we'll reload and we'll see whatever the information was saved, we see that one. Okay, thank you so much. Before we finish over here in this part, I think I'm missing another part over here. Now, as you see, if you go ahead and run it, definitely you don't see the bottom bar and everything else stays the same. All right, and they also work as we expected. All right, but now where is our bottom bar? Well, now here's the problem. So once we confirm the loaded state, we are directly going to the home page. Actually, we should come to our main page. Okay, this is our main page, which we learned early, and within main page we have bottom navigation bar like this, and in the list of pages, the first one is home page, and that's also our default index 0, which takes over here and as well as over here. Okay, so all we need to do, just simply come over here, and instead of home page, we'll call it main page. Okay, and main page we'll call home page, and make sure to import the library. Okay, now let's go ahead and run it. Okay, yes, and now it should work. So our bottom navigation bar, there is the home page, the bar page, search page, and me page. Wow, now these are all working. Yes, and yeah, perfect. So this is all we expected. So hopefully you learned something. So don't forget to smash that like button. Thank you.